Welcome back, everyone. Spring and summer is a time for new growth and taking bold action together. So we hope these stories will inspire you to live boldly, take wise chances, and with our friends and family make a difference together. Today, we're continuing our stories of The American Story, 102 Tales from American History by Jennifer Armstrong and illustrated by Roger Roth. So lean in with the spirit of adventure, grab a friend, and let's enjoy the story together. 1903, Into the Air. Ever since they were boys growing up in Dayton, Ohio, Wilbur and Orville Wright had their heads in the clouds. They both dreamed of flying, of making a machine that could fly with a person on board. Everything about flight and the properties of air became a subject of study for them, and they made kites, gliders, and paper helicopter toys. They were expert thinkers and tinkerers. Tinkerers, really. As they reached manhood, they opened a bicycle shop to support themselves as they chased their dream, making a motor-propelled flying machine to lift them into the air. Oh, goodness, gee. Dayton was not the perfect spot for their experiments. The landscape was full of obstructions. They considered spots all over the country and finally found their ideal site at Kitty Hawk off the coast of North Carolina. Wilbur wrote, your sister was here. Wilbur wrote to his father after visiting the barrier island for the first time in 1900. There are neither hills nor trees, so that it offers a safe place for practice. Safe. It's a safe place to fling myself off of a hill and hope that I don't crash. Also, the wind is stronger than any place near home and is almost constant, so that it is not necessary to wait days or weeks for a suitable breeze. I will be careful and will not attempt new experiments in dangerous situations. From then on, the Wright brothers spent as much time as possible at Kitty Hawk, going back and forth between North Carolina and Ohio to work in the bicycle shop. On the island, they first camped in a tent, but eventually constructed a shed to house their gliders and flying machines. They tinkered with motors and wing shapes, they constructed steering mechanisms, and they calculated the power of air. By the end of 1903, they had tested their machine by flying it as a kite and were ready to try manned flight. December was cold and windy on the North Carolina coast. On the wet sands of Kitty Hawk, oyster catchers and sandpipers ran on tiptoe. From time to time, the sound of a revving motor or tools clanking on metal scared them into flight, and they turned into shrill-voiced arcs over the Atlantic shore. Wilbur and Orville breathed on their hands and rubbed them together for warmth as they made last-minute preparations. Their machine, which they called a flyer, had no wheels. They couldn't just run the motor and start bumping and scraping along the ground to take off, so they used a long monorail of train track with a little wheeled platform so the flyer could rest on. With assistance from a nearby weather station holding the wings up at either ends, the flyer could run along the rail as it gathered speed and then take off up into the air. Well, that was a hope anyway. They would go in the air. Orville described what happened on December 17th. When we got up, a wind of between 20 and 25 miles was blowing from the north. We got the machine out early and put out the signal for the men at the station. After running the engine and propellers a few minutes to get them in working order, I got on the machine at 10:35 for the first trial. On slipping the rope, the machine started off increasing its speed to probably 7 or 8 miles. The machine lifted from the truck just as it was entering the fourth rail. He flew. A man in a machine propelled by its own power lifted from the... I wonder how they decided who would go first. That had to have been, a bone of contention between the two, I would assume, especially for brothers. And it rose into the air, flying 120 feet before a gust of wind tipped it down to the ground. He had been airborne for 12 seconds. And the note here, when the Wright brothers offered to share their aircraft with the U.S. government, the War Department declined the offer, seeing no practical use for it. You have to understand, first of all, how this plane looks. You can kind of see it here. Hey, let's take this plane to war, wasn't exactly a good sales pitch. And before World War I, we had never done that before. No one had ever done that before. They weren't taking planes to go fight wars or battles. We'd never done that before, so it makes sense why they would turn them down. But yeah, it is. And what's amazing too is their growth in pretty quick order. They were able to get way better, way faster. So they definitely improved very quickly after that. So, kudos to them.